Welcome to the Latino podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities with legal, political, and community leaders and visionaries. Let's get started.
Hey, it's John Gomez. Welcome to today's edition of the Latino, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities. We feature community leaders, lawyers, judges, scholars, business people, and others that all contribute to this discussion about, law, commerce, society, and our Latino community. I'm joined today, as always, by David Arreguin, a current lawyer here at Gomez Trial Attorneys. He heads up our U.S.-Mexico border region practice, our corridor. We call it the border corridor. He also manages our relationships with other lawyers. And he originally was a guest on the podcast. I'm super excited now to have him at the firm and as my co-host for this podcast. Good to be here with you as always, David.
Thank you, John. Always a great intro.
Yeah, so before we introduce today's guest, this episode, as always, is brought to you by our sponsors. Who's that again?
Gomez Trial Attorneys.
Gomez Trial Attorneys. So what is Gomez Trial Attorneys? What do we do here? What makes us special?
Well, first of all, Gomez Trial Attorneys is from here and for you. De aquí para ti, like we always say. And we're, the leading trial attorney firm here in town. We focus on personal injury, civil rights, and employment, assisting our local community.
And we call ourselves binational, bicultural, and best in class. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, and actually, in one of the latest, and as you actually said, binacional, bicultural, and best in class, which actually encompasses the binational part of it. But what that means is that we represent a lot of the people that either cross the border every day, they work here, they put their time in, and unfortunately, they're in need of our assistance at one point. And then, of course, best in class, just based on our track record, John's reputation in the community, and then also all the great attorneys that we have in the office.
And I'm real proud that we are able to offer white shoe, super elite legal representation to our clients in both a culturally sensitive and bilingual way. We equally speak English and Spanish here. We have a big Spanish-speaking team, including me and David and other lawyers, and also our staff. And so we believe, today we're one big community. That is all of us in this region, regardless of borders. That's why we also say that we provide justicia sin fronteras, justice without borders. We think that's important and what sets us apart. So without any further ado, enough patting ourselves on the back, let's welcome our esteemed guest for today. We have with us today Jorge García, who is the Dean of Admissions, I believe, also financial aid, works on diversity at Cal Western School of Law. I think formerly kind of held all those positions in a matter of speaking at the University of San Diego School of Law. And so these are two of really the largest, most important law schools in our region. And so welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So what we like to do first, we like to kind of get a feel for, where you're from, where you grew up, kind of what brought you into this space.
Sure. So I grew up in South San Diego. I was born in Tijuana. My family moved here when I had finished elementary school. So I grew up, in the Nestor community is what it's called. I went to high school at Bonita Vista High School, and then did a couple of years at Southwestern College, and then transferred into UCSD. At UCSD is where I started my career. So I graduated with a degree in economics during the middle of a recession. So there was no investment job. So I was a work study student. I was first generation high need student, and I was working in between classes in the financial aid office as a student assistant. And when I graduated, I was asked whether I would want to stay as a financial aid counselor. And so I took it until, I was hoping that I would ride out the recession and eventually go into an investment job. And the woman that trained me said, if you don't leave in 6 months, you're never going to leave. So 34 years later, I'm still doing the same type of work, working with students, helping them, reach their goals, right? Help them find funding to cover their expenses. And so I did a stint at Cal State San Marcos working with undergrads. So I was the person that, at that time, did financial aid presentations to Spanish-speaking communities. There weren't many who were able to do that. So, I would speak to parents who were working the fields back when North County was primarily fields, and do the presentations in Spanish. And then, eventually I was offered a job at the University of San Diego in the law school, primarily doing financial aid. And with it came some admissions, of which I knew zero. I didn't know any of it. But, my boss then started taking me to recruitment events, and just by listening, speaking with students, I didn't go to law school. I went to business school, and I started reading applications, and he slowly started training me to his eventual retirement. And then I applied for the position, and I was there for 18 years as both associate director and then eventually assistant dean of admissions and financial aid. And the last 4 or 5 years, I oversaw diversity. And then I was presented with the opportunity to come to California Western in 2021. And the dean then was, very inspirational to me. She talked about working with students who were first-generation students, high-need students, and I figured that would be a good time to finish my career by going full circle and begin working with students who, I started working with and who I was one of. So yeah, that's how I got where I am now.
Amazing, amazing journey. And so I want to back up, just because some of our listeners may have different experiences. Maybe they're in high school, maybe they're in junior college. Like I heard that you are a junior college graduate. I know that UC and the Cal State schools have amazing programs for transfer students from junior college. You worked in admissions, or I guess financial aid at Cal State San Marcos. So, I was a junior college guy. I started out at Grossmont Junior College. And so, a lot of kids, like I was a kid, you were a better student than me, but I was a terrible, terrible high school student. And so like all I cared about was football. And so I was out of junior college. But, some kids might think, oh, golly, I didn't get into Stanford or whatever. I'm done, but no way.
No.
Junior college is a good place to start.
It is. Back then, college advising was very different. I was somehow, they would separate the room, and half of them would talk to like the metal shop and workshop. The other group would talk to AP professors. And, I was put on the room where the Marines and the Army recruited. And then the other kids would go and talk to the college recruiters. So I had no guidance. So when I graduated, I was thinking of joining the Army. That didn't work out, and I was like, it was July. I had no plans, and my mom gave me 2 options. You can either go work full time, or you can go to school full time. You're not going to come here and sit and do nothing. And I ended up, started going to college, got a job, and so in a sense, I was doing both. We just didn't. She didn't have the money to put me through college, so the option was to go to community college, which was fairly cheap then. It's $50 for a semester.
Yeah.
And I met a very good friend who who then told me, I get money to come to school. I was like, what? What kind of there must be a catch. And she said, no, they like send me a check every so often, my Pell Grant. And so that was my start.
Oh,
So that's how I, eventually went to the transfer center, spoke with an amazing counselor, and she basically gave me a list of courses. She says, you take all of these courses. When you're done, come back. And yeah, I did that, and I did well enough that I was able to be accepted to UCSD.
probably with some financial aid too.
Yeah. I mean, there was like no other way to do it. So, back then it was not as expensive as schools are now. But I still, my mom can afford that. So yeah, I had a job. I was a work-study student, and between earnings and savings and loans and grants, I was able to put myself through school.
See, that's the thing, like you going out and doing those presentations for, parents that themselves probably or most certainly never attended, higher education in this country. Like I was the same, like I had no idea like that you could get money for going to college. And everybody I was around was like, if you can either afford it or not afford it, and we thought we couldn't afford it. So, I feel like hopefully now there's more information out there. I hope that kids aren't like, oh, I can't afford to go to college,
Yeah. No, it's a matter of information is where it's at, right? If you happen to find somebody that can provide some of that guidance, and hopefully high school counselors do this, there is a way. It may not be linear. You may have to go to a community college, but the goal is to get to the end point. And there are ways of doing it.
Amen.
Yeah, and I feel like community college paves the way. So I was also a junior college guy coming from.
Wait, hold on. That wasn't on your application. So look, we have 3 JC guys here in the house.
So
were you at Southwestern?
No, so I did Mesa College.
Mesa. We got everyone in town covered.
Yeah. So the interesting part of people from Tijuana, because I graduated high school in Tijuana, a lot of people, there's no guidance, right, at all coming from Tijuana. So one of the things is, well, everyone talks about community college and they're transferring to the university. So I did that. But one of the things that I found to be very beneficial at junior college is the fact that you have like 3 sets of counselors, one with financial aid, one with EOPS, and one with the transfer studies. So it's also on you to be very proactive and talk to these people. Yes. Because I was able to get out of community college in 2 years, right? My grades were great, and then I was able to get into an impacted program at San Diego State. But I feel like what you are doing is actually letting people know what the path is what's important, right? And I'm in the process, and now I'm going to have to pick your brain after this, because I'm in the process of working with my high school in Tijuana to give a chat to the kids in 9th or 10th grade.
Sure.
So they have this guidance as to how to get into a university or eventually go to law school, right? So Jorge, you're going to be my to-go guy for that particular thing.
Yeah.
There's a guy, he knows.
Yeah.
And so, like when you first started at USD in the law school, I guess that was more than 20 years ago.
Yes.
Like what did diversity look like at USD School of Law?
I mean,
compared to today?
Yeah. Well, I can't speak for USD today because I'm not there. But I do know that the person that preceded me was very aware of the underrepresentation of people of color within the legal profession, and he did his best. He did his best. I think that when I came in, it might have helped in the sense that they could see themselves in me. I was one of them, and it might have brought a little more credibility to what was being pitched to them. And so I developed the connections with the applicants who became students who are now attorneys who are very good friends of mine. And I to some extent I had a vested interest in making sure that they succeeded, because that would allow me to bring in more. And it was very different from the profile of students at Cal State San Marcos, right? It was kind of like going back to when I was at UCSD. I looked around and not many people looked like me. And my goal was to help them find a community. So I was, even though I wasn't a faculty member, I was kind of like the faculty advisor to La Raza student group. And it just, it felt good. It felt good to know that I was able to help. And yeah, so, I think at the point I left, I think diversity, students of color made up about 35% of the student body. I don't know what it is now. But, I'm at a school where it's a minority majority school now. So,
oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's
like California.
In my very humble opinion, I think that law school should resemble the community where they're going to go into. So yeah, we're a minority majority. We have 40+% first gen students.
40 plus first generation?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, I went to school on the East Coast,
Mhm.
and we had this thing, they called it out there, they called it LASA. It was Latino Law Students Association, because a lot of our guys were like Puerto Rican, like, because we're East Coast, Dominican. So they weren't feeling raza,
Yeah.
but they were all about Latino. But I remember, like, we would basically go terrorize the dean. Oh, we want more numbers. We want more numbers. And I think, I feel like back then, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be like, I graduated law school in 1993. I feel like, was there a time where you could overtly consider ethnicity?
I think that affirmative action played a part, right, to some extent. USD is not a state school. So there was some leadway in that sense. Now, I also was fully aware that, there were costs associated with bringing in potentially somebody that I saw academically would struggle. Mm-hmm. Because the worst thing that I would want to do is bring in somebody because they're a great person, but their academics are not there. You put them through a first year of college, you saddle them with, at that time, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in student loans, and then they fail out, and now you put them in a deeper hole. Right. So now they have to deal with that. So I had to make sure that the students that I strongly recruited showed some signs that they were going to be able to do it. The LSAT, it's a standardized test, and there's data that says that students of color underperform in standardized tests. So you have to look beyond that. The GPA, the undergrad GPA, and many students will outperform the predictor that the LSAT is. So you want to look for people who are not going to quit, who are going to, work hard and dig in and, outperform and outwork everybody else. And, the hope is that you get 100%, and, it doesn't happen, but you just want to make sure you just don't admit people for the sake of admitting people.
Yeah, that would be doing a disservice to them.
It is.
And ultimately to your efforts.
Right. Yeah. Because, if that happens, they're going to start keeping me from being able to take these controlled risks.
Yeah, I feel like, like a kid who is maybe first generation, not a whole lot of guidance, maybe they're not going to be, a great standardized, test taker. Maybe they're just kind of figuring academics out in college. So maybe the grades, they don't have like a mom who's a professor and a dad who's a doctor,
or even the funding to purchase a tutoring program. Yeah. Those are $1,000.
Right.
And many of them just don't have the means, and they self-study, but there's a difference.
I was telling that story today.
I was telling the story this morning about that. But I feel like even for those programs, there's not a lot of assistance, correct? I mean, mostly the assistance goes towards the school, but not the study program.
In terms of financial aid, because you're not a student, right. So you have to figure out how to find the money to cover this exam, this prep program,
like an LSAT prep course.
Right? Yeah, that is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500, and to many students who are first gen, that's like, okay, well, here's the first obstacle I need to overcome.
Plus, like, a lot of those kids probably having to work, like
Yes.
little rich kid. Well, I don't make fun of it, but like,
There's a
other
difference.
kids
You
might not have to work. All they do is sit at home with their parents, and their parents are giving them food, ironing their clothes, and paying for their prep course, and that's all they got to do.
Not the same starting point. and that's what makes my job not just science, but there's an art to it, right? You need to make sure that you just don't run numbers and pick numbers. You have to, in my opinion, you have to find the person. And in many cases, the person overtakes what those predictors are.
Yeah, there's a book I like called Grit, and I feel like I've always been of the belief if you take someone that works hard and has strong convictions and determination and you put them into a pool or an environment, they'll rise to the environment. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that?
Yeah. I've done this long enough that I know a lot of people who practice law in San Diego, and some of them were risks. I was like, I'm going to take it, but God, I hope he or she does well, and they're great. They're great attorneys. It's not a predictor of whether a person is going to be a good attorney or not.
That's amazing. That must make you feel pretty good.
It feels good. Yeah. It does. It does, because thankfully along my career, I found people who gave me the chance, right? Who took a risk on me, and to be able to pass that on, it's the right thing to do, but it feels good.
And so, if you are, one of our listeners, a young listener thinking about law school, maybe first generation, maybe not even first generation, like what tips would you give to an aspiring law student in terms of admission to a Cal Western school?
Sure. I think that, one, you want to get information, and you don't get information from Reddit. You need to get like valid, reliable information, and whether they come to my office or whether they go to USD and just ask to speak with an advisor. And I know for a fact that both schools will provide time to sit with somebody. I have met with high schoolers who are like already thinking about it. And, my recommendation is that you work very hard, because your GPA monetizes. The higher your GPA is, the less you may have to pay, because your scholarship will possibly be higher. And you don't quit. You just don't quit. I understand that not everybody's made out to do this, and wanting to do it doesn't mean you can. But whatever hard work you put into it, you're going to come out stronger on the back end. We have high schools who come and tour the school, and we talk to them, and it feels really good when we bring out a couple of our students, law students, and have them talk to them. And, they'll say, I was right there just not that many years ago. So we also part of the California Pathways program that starts with community college students, and they get advising, and then the connection is made with a university that is also a partner school. And they go to one of those schools, continue to get the advising, and then eventually end up at one of the law schools.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it basically paves you the path, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a difficult part. A lot of times, like how to get there. Like I see when people are like attorneys, but how do you get at that point? And for a lot of my colleagues when I was in college, I feel like one of the struggles was, one, they were always saying, well, I don't have money. Well, go on, have money to college. That's why financial aid exists. So you got to talk to people. And then the other one is like, what is the process? Like even right now, I know they have the LSAT, but I know now like the GRE is considered for going to law school, right? Would you say that the LSAT versus the GRE, is there any type of predictor that will say, well, this person's going to be in a great law school?
Sure. I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that the LSAT, there's hundreds of thousands of people who've taken it, and it's there. That data is very useful. For GRE, it really didn't become an option until maybe 6-7 years ago. So in any entering class that I have brought in, there may be 235 LSAT people, 5 GRE people. So the data, you have to be much more careful because it's not as reliable. So you rely a little more on the other factors. The undergrad GPA, making sure that, that GPA means something. There is a difference between getting a GPA at a UC versus a GPA at an online self-paced program, because it's just not the same. So you want to make sure you look at the other elements. Are they involved in communities? Have taken leadership positions? Do they show a passion for this, or are they just kind of doing it because they have a philosophy degree and they don't know what to do with it? There has to be a purpose, and you somehow, in there, you try to find that grit that you mentioned. I've read 30,000 applications at this point in my career. So and we've sort of briefly discussed AI, but it just pops out when you see it. I can't explain it. You just know.
I have a question. So I debate this a little bit with my kids sometimes, because I feel like my kids, they see me a lawyer. Their mom actually was a lawyer, and they, at least some of them, are obsessed with getting into the best undergraduate they can get into. And but I went to junior college, San Diego State, USD, and then somehow got into Yale Law School with no help at all. And when I was there, I feel like some of the kids that did best didn't come from these Ivy League schools, or these fancy schools. They stood out like a state school.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if I had somehow been admitted to, and all my classmates were valedictorian,
Mm-hmm.
Princeton and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there's zero chance. If I did that straight away, I would have been a regular, a C guy. Do you think kids that have a path in their mind toward law school, they get too obsessed with what undergraduate school they get into? I know there's a difference between a UC and an online.
Sure. I don't think.
Should they go to the best undergraduate school they can get into? I
think assuming that cost is not a factor, I don't see a problem with it. I think it's an experience. When you go to a school like that, you're generally not going to be at home. So you're going to be experiencing being alone and maturing, and right. So that's part of it. But if you're somebody who this is going to cost, you don't need to go to a school like that. You can go to San Marcos or San Diego State is our biggest feeder.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Both here and when I was at USD.
Yeah.
And there are amazing attorneys that were San Diego State alum.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I was there a semester.
Yeah. So I think that it's not necessary. When I'm reviewing an application, I don't necessarily look down on any school, right? I just want to make sure that the student was challenged academically, to make sure that they're going to be able to adjust to this step up. And so to answer your question, I think that if cost is not a factor and people have money and that's what they want to do and they feel they can succeed there, knock yourself out. But it's not going to be necessarily, it's going to get you in if your GPA is trash and if your LSAT is not good. I don't care where you went.
Right.
It's not going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the hard work is what we look for.
And so you were sharing with us as we walked in, I've seen it, some mention of it online, that application numbers are very much up right now.
Yes.
At your school, 48%, I believe you said.
Yes.
What do you think explains that?
So, I'm sure there's several reasons, right? I think that usually when an economy goes into some form of a recession and people can't find a job, they look at a graduate degree. So, in past years, you would see people all of a sudden applying to business schools or law schools start bumping up. This isn't really the case now, right? However, I did see this happen in 2016. In 2016, there was a bump in applications, and it some say. And
What happened in 2016?
Well, then, there was a change in administration nationally. There was a new president came in, and there were people who didn't necessarily agree with
Trump won.
Political points of view. And so you see a bump in applications, and they tell you in the personal statement why they're going to law school. Yeah. So it's not like I was guessing. I knew why they were going. And it happened again last year. There was another bump. I was up 30%. I finished 30% up in applications at the end of the year. I'm up 48% now. And what is the common denominator?
Right.
It's this. So that's a factor. There's also, if you read like business magazines, there's the market, the employment market has sort of stagnated. It's not really, people who are graduating from college are not necessarily finding a job right away. And they're telling me when they're applying. And I think that's the second factor. I think that issues like AI and security, cybersecurity, some of those things are also driving applications. I'm getting a lot of people who have technical backgrounds that are interested in cyber law or things like that. So I think that there's some areas that are also driving applications up.
Do you feel like, maybe efforts at educating at-risk populations and first generation, like you're seeing like more applications from that demographic than you would historically?
So I think that I have seen that more applicants of color are applying now. And it's not proportionate to the increase in applications nationally. They're outperforming. And I think that, many immigrants who came in during the 90s, 2000, they're having kids here. And now those kids are going to college and going to grad school. So many of them are going to law school for specific reasons. And it's because either they themselves or family members or the community have faced injustices, and they want to go back to help rectify some of those. And the story is consistent. It's very consistent. I was, 10 years old, and I was translating things between my parents and X entity, and I saw how they were getting a raw deal, right? And now I want to go back and help rectify this. And it is a very common theme across the board. And I think that going for law school to do that is a really good idea. It's a good reason. It's not because I want to become a millionaire. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but they have a very specific reason why they're doing it. And they tell you up front.
Imagine, reading that would be a powerful, personal statement.
Yeah. And you can't fake your way through it. I can see it.
Right.
It's just, it comes across that you're like, you finish and it's like, oh my God, this is the person I want in my classroom, because it'll bring in a perspective that many others can't even think about. I just admitted a candidate 2 weeks ago or a week ago. He was a ward of the court. So he was in the system between the ages of 11 and 18 and saw horrible things. And he wants to go back and fix the system. And he tells you, all these things that he's overcome. And you're like, oh my God, and you made it this far, right? Because many of them fall off. Along the way, that many of them fall off. But
obstacles.
Oh yeah. They're ill prepared. He tells me he was given a $200 ATM card and a bus ticket, and
when he
set
turned
away
18?
at 18.
Oh man.
And
it's like
he had to figure himself out. Yeah. And yet he managed to get through, high school, undergrad, and now he's applying to law school.
Amazing.
It's amazing. And those are the ones that like you really are rooting for, right? Because they deserve that.
So what is it like? Do you attend the graduation ceremony?
I do.
Like, what's it like when you see like some of your kids up there that were kind of like wobblers?
It's very cool to see that. It's to see the family.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because their family comes and they're the 1% the first person to make it. And it's very cool. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have been invited by some of these students to their swearing in. They'll have a swearing in, and they'll be family and like me. And that is very cool. Like, it chokes you up.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Very cool.
And so, like, I thought you were saying, like, oh, you wanted to kind of end your career, at Cal Western,
Sure.
Because it's full circle. Like, do you have an end in mind, or are you just saying this is your last chapter?
I mean, I'm 57. I know I'm not going to work until my 70s. I've been very lucky in the jobs that I have had, and I have put my kids through college. And at this point, I'm just like, feeling that nest egg to be able to comfortably retire.
Okay.
And so I have no immediate plans of doing it, but I know that I'm going to eventually do it. So yeah, I mean, I would have sworn 5 years ago that I was going to retire from USD, and things change. I took this position, I built it to what I wanted to look like and what we're doing, and it's doing well. And I just hope that I'm able to retire there.
And so, like right now, like at Cal Western, I know that you're what do you call it, majority?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what percentage of the kids there are Latino, or more or less?
So I believe our last entering class, it was 56% were students of color. And this does not include Middle Eastern students because they don't have a box to check.
They don't count?
They default to white.
Really?
So if you add, Persian, Arabic students, the number's higher. The lion's share are Latinos. Okay. I don't have the percentage, but the majority of them are. And it's because, look around.
So where we are.
Walk around. So, yeah.
That's pretty good. And so, like, I know right now, still licensed California attorneys, like, of Latino descent are still, I believe, under 10%. Does that sound right? Or do you know those figures?
I don't know. I know that nationally they're stronger in California than they are nationally, but I don't know the percentage. But I do, I go to, events, events, and then they're everywhere.
They're
for
sure
doing better.
That's the big show anymore. Like, I remember, like, when I would go to those events, like 15 years ago, there'd be a few judges. Now every judge is there. Like, it's a packed house.
That's fine.
Aren't you like one of the first members or something like that for La Raza?
Lifetime member.
Lifetime member.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I funded the first scholarship. They reminded me. I didn't even remember. But I've always had like a strong passion for that because, like, there's zero. If you predicted me, like, kind of like single mom, like terrible, like just academically lost in high school. I somehow find it to a junior college, and then I'm at San Diego State, and then I end up at USD. Yeah. Only reason I went to USD was to play football. But like, you would never, ever in a million years predict that somehow I would end up being a lawyer and have a decent success in that field. And so, like, that really strongly fuels my belief that if you take kids that have some grit and determination and a dream and put them in, like, they can compete with anybody.
Sure. And the pipeline starts in elementary school.
Right.
That's where you start setting the seed. Like, I went to UCSD to a great degree because my 7th grade math teacher at Montgomery Junior High, we did a field trip. And I remember going, I had never seen a college. And I remember going, and what caught my eye was that they had foosball tables in the dorms. I was like, my God, this place is amazing. And then they took us to like the indoor pool. And you were looking around, it's like, I'm going to come here.
Oh, yeah.
And, along the way, I had found obstacles, but I went there. And I think that exposure and that information, being, having a Latino attorney go to them and speak to them and say, yeah, you can do this. It starts setting the seed, and you just need to take care of it along the way. And I think there's, clearly the work that high school counselors do and community counselors do is paying off because you're starting to see more Latinos in college. and those are translating into grad schools and law schools.
For sure. And so, you know, like we talked about the different, well, talk a little more, if you would, about this holistic. So here I am, I'm like, I don't know, I'm a junior in college, and I'm thinking about like, what should I do other than get good grades and do good on my LSAT to really, and say like, I came from a background, like you said, first generation, my parents are immigrants. Like, what should I be doing to set myself apart, to demonstrate my commitment to community, leadership, all those kinds of things?
Well, you know, many of those students, like the profile you just gave me, don't have time available to do other than that and work. And they work.
Oh, because they work.
Because they have to help their family, right? Or they have to cover themselves. And so many of those students don't have the extracurriculars than some of their counterparts. So if that's the case, you know, I want to know that where they worked, they were like a star, right? A letter of recommendation from their employer that speaks to the hard work, to the fact that they problem solve, to the fact that they're good team workers and they're, you know, problem solvers. That's what will tell me, okay, this person is strong across the board. And then they'll talk about it in their personal statements. They just, you know, many of them don't have the time to do anything. And I get the question that, you know, am I out of luck because I can't do these? And I was like, no. You know, I've had students who they had a Starbucks job through college and they had to work really long shifts because they needed the money, and their resume is like this long, and yet they still do well because they're great. They kept their grades up. They studied hard and worked hard.
See, I feel like if I was looking at an application and some kid worked at Chick-fil-A or Starbucks or something, I would be highly impressed. I could just show that. Shows great.
Those are, you know, they may not be glamorous, but they're hard work. There's hard work. You know, it also helps start developing their customer service skills, right? Because as I'm sure you know, as attorneys, you know, there are some abrasive clients from time to time you have to deal with, and you know, it's no different than if you're, you know, serving people in a counter, and you need to know how to like manage those situations. So
believe me, I waited tables all through college, and it's not the easiest job. And it's late, and then you work till like 11, 12, 1 a.m. and people are still there. But like you said, customer service, that definitely helps. And then it actually helps with conversations and understanding people. So what you're saying basically is it doesn't really matter what type of job that we're doing, just the fact that we're doing the best.
That you want to be, whatever it is that you do, you try your hardest, and the hope is that you're one of the better ones. Yes.
And so as you kind of talk or think about your philosophy in terms of your life work, how important do you believe it is to have a representative, you know, bar and bench? Like,
it's critical. You know, you want to make sure that across the board there is representation of the population, that there has to be. And not only that, but it's also inspirational to applicants who the best part is when you have an event and you have you know, a judge come and talk to like prospective applicants, and they're like, wow, you're like, I would have never thought there was somebody like me in your position. Whether it be a partner at a firm, or you know, just somebody of who's reached, you know, their peak. That's what they need. They need to see that. They need to see that it can be done, and they're no better than you. They just work really hard to get to that point, and you can do it. And that alone is what makes it important.
Yeah, for sure. We're blessed that our Chief Justice of our Supreme Court, you know, is the daughter of immigrants.
Sure.
You know, which is pretty cool.
She came to Cal Western last semester and spoke, and it's inspirational. And, you know, she spoke about her parents. And, you know, if she can do it, I'm sure she's brilliant, but she also worked really hard.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, hard worker. Well, I feel like you, by virtue of your life's work and what you shared here today, I think, probably kids will listen to this and have a career in leadership and law that they otherwise would not have had.
Right.
So it's almost like you were able to go out in the community and give your talk, to some of our kids. And so thank you for that. I think, you just spending an hour with us here today will make a tremendous difference. And I just want to thank you for your commitment. I know during the course of your career at both USD and now Cal Western, like you have impacted tons of lives for the better and made a difference in law and made our, legal community more representative of the communities that we serve. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come in and speak, and hopefully a kid does hear this and it'll change their perspective on.
Plus, they now know they can go visit.
They can come and visit me.
Yeah. So like once you do retire, what are you going to do? What do you want to do with your time? Other than visit your kids at college or whatever. Or their grandkids.
I'm not the type of person who's going to go home and like do nothing. I'm probably going to do, hopefully volunteer somewhere. I remember there was a person who worked for me who, I asked her, what do you do after work? And she goes, I go to East County and I teach immigrants for their citizenship test. I would love to do that.
All right.
Just to help people. There's especially nowadays that there's a lot of people who need a lot of help.
For sure.
And if I can, provide some of that assistance, then that's what allows me to go to sleep at night knowing that you did something good. There were a lot of people who did very good things for my family, and I just want to pass it along.
Like that teacher that brought you up to see the foosball.
Mr. Cerna, I will never forget him. He was a grouchy old man, but he was probably one of the first people who had an impact in my life.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was a real treat. Thank you, David, as always.
Of course.
For your closing, if you could write words in the sky for everyone to see forever, what words would you choose to write?
Well, wow. I think to quote one of our great leaders, "Sí se puede."
Sí se puede. There you go.
Yeah, you can do this. It's just a matter of working hard.
Amazing.
And we are a people that works very hard.
We did have Dolores Huerta on here as our guest, and she basically told us she came up with that, not Cesar.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for all the good you do. And so this concludes this episode of the Latino. If you like it, like us, share us, keep listening, become and remain a member of our communities. As always, we believe it's super important to spread awareness, knowledge, and enthusiasm for work for justice and communities. So thank you again for listening. And this signs off this episode of the Latino.
Thank you for listening to the Latino podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.